What's going on, Packers fans? Happy Tuesday. Welcome into this all new episode of the Pack a Day podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack a Day Podcast. In just a moment, we're going to be joined by the great Justice Mosqueda of Acme Packing Company. When I say this is one of our more wide-ranging episodes when it comes to topics, this is definitely one of our more wide-ranging episodes when it comes to topics. Trust me on that one. I think you're really going to enjoy it. I know I certainly did. It was a ton of fun. So we'll get to that in just a moment. Before we get there, want to go over today's injury report, sponsored and brought to you by Habish and Rotier. This, remember, is a simulated injury report only. Neither of these teams, the Dolphins nor the Packers, actually practiced on Monday. So they're simulating what they think the injury report would be if the teams actually practiced, but they didn't practice. So take it for what it's worth. I think this will be worth keeping an eye on through the remainder of the week, of course. But for now, this is what the Packers and Dolphins submitted as their estimated injury report for Monday. From a did not participate status, for the Packers, Jaire Alexander with his knee injury, Edgerrin Cooper with his hamstring injury, Romeo Doubs with his concussion, John Fitzpatrick with a back injury, and then Isaiah McDuffie with an ankle injury. All five of those, per their estimates, would not have practiced on Monday. Three of those we knew, right, or at least assumed: Jaire, Edgerrin Cooper, and Romeo Doubs. We knew Jaire wasn't going to be back at least this quick. Edgerrin Cooper, maybe some hope he could have potentially been back, but he was not practicing. Not a surprise there. And Romeo Doubs coming off the concussion, you knew that was going to happen. John Fitzpatrick, not sure when that injury flared up or whatever may have happened or caused that, but he would not have practiced. And then Isaiah McDuffie with an ankle injury. The noteworthy ones there, obviously like Jaire and Cooper are the huge noteworthy ones, but the interesting ones there, John Fitzpatrick, if he can't go, you're kind of down to two tight ends, right? You've got Ben Sims and Tucker Kraft. Now, they do have Messiah Swinson on the practice squad, but overall, like, you're kind of left with two at the moment. And it's tough to bring anyone in right now because you've got a game in 3 days, right? So 2 days as you're listening to this on Tuesday. So it's really difficult to kind of bring anyone at this moment. So if Fitzpatrick can't go, I would assume Messiah Swinson potentially gets called up, or they could just go with two. And if they want a third tight end, we saw Kadeem Telfort brought in some goal line packages, right? But you're very thin at that position. If all of a sudden Kraft or Sims were to go down, you're left with only one tight end. So we could see Messiah Swinson called up if Fitzpatrick can't go. And then Isaiah McDuffie would be the other one where you're left with three linebackers, right? You only have in that situation Quay Walker, Eric Wilson, and Tyron Hopper. And Hopper, outside of garbage time last week, played one snap ahead of that in his career so far. So that would be extremely interesting. They have Jamin Davis on the practice squad that they could call up, and that could be in play if, in fact, Isaiah McDuffie can't go in this game. So, again, Jaire Alexander, Edgerrin Cooper, Romeo Doubs, John Fitzpatrick, and Isaiah McDuffie, the five that did not practice. Kenny Clark, Josh Jacobs, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, and Rasheed Walker were all limited. Jacobs, Jenkins, and Clark were all with just veteran rest. So that's great news there. And then Josh Myers was listed as limited, but not with his wrist injury, with a pectoral injury. So that'll be one worth keeping a little bit of an eye on as well. From a Dolphins standpoint, Teron Armstead, Tyus Bowser, Calais Campbell, Kendall Fuller, Jordan Poyer, Anthony Walker Jr. all did not participate in practice, or again, would not have participated in practice if said practice actually existed. Calais Campbell and Jordan Poyer on that list were just vet rest. So those two likely going to be good to go. The rest did not participate in some capacity. Limited were Tyreek Hill, Alec Ingold, Benito Jones, Jalen Ramsey, and Isaiah Wynn. And full participants included Julian Hill, Javon Holland, Robert Jones, and Patrick McMorris. Those are the injury reports for both teams. Again, with it just being a simulated situation, not sure how much we can glean from it on this particular day, but we'll absolutely keep a super close eye on it on Tuesday and Wednesday as we get to those final injury reports and see who's actually listed as questionable, doubtful, etc., and out for this game, and how that could actually impact Packers Dolphins as we get closer to the game and preview it on Thursday. Of course, the Packers have an elite injury recovery team helping players safely find their way back to the field. If you are injured after an accident, you'll need a team of qualified and experienced personal injury attorneys to champion your cause. The attorneys at Habish always are here for you with a national reputation and compassionate hometown service. They'll work hard to get you the compensation that you deserve. And when you call Habish, you'll talk to a lawyer directly. It's easy. Their number is 800-242-2874 or 800-2HABISH. Of course, you can also visit their website at habish.com. Habish and Rotier, national reputation, hometown service. Now, without any further ado, here's our wonderful conversation with the one and only Justis Mosqueda. What's up, friends? We are now joined by the wonderful Justis Mosqueda, joining us from Acme Packing Company. You can find him on Twitter at JUMOSQ. Are you on the Blue Sky yet, Justis? You're on the Blue Sky, right?
Yeah, I signed up when I saw a bunch of Packers fans out there, so I'm on both.
There is a lot of Packers fans out there, so if you guys haven't signed up yet, make sure to do so. It just feels like one huge Packers community, quite honestly. But yeah, it's kind of been fun just kind of seeing everyone over there. But great to see you over there as well. Great to see you here, Justis. Let's start off Packers 49ers. Per usual, the floor is yours. Give us your nerdiest, best, and most amazing take in the entire history of the world.
I don't know about most amazing take. It felt like a big waste of time to me.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
it
fair.
felt inevitable that, like, yeah, especially once they were like, yeah, Brandon Allen has a broken thumb and he fumbled the first drive. No, or
He has
not
a
broken thumb,
he had a broken thumb.
broken
I didn't even
finger.
hear about
He
this.
had a broken finger. Yeah, they showed it in the broadcast. It was all taped up and stuff. And I was like, okay,
Why would you not use
over.
Josh Dobbs in that situation?
Don't ask me. Don't ask me. Why would you only run the ball, what was it, 3 times in the entire first half? I don't know. It ended up working in the second half a little bit, but
Yeah.
it just felt like it was inevitable. They were losing. They just lost too many stars. Once Lenore dropped out too, that first drive. I know he came back in the game, but then everyone was like, Fred Warner was the only starter on the defense for the playoffs, and he's the only guy who returned to the team and is healthy right now. And I'm like, this isn't good.
No.
We're not learning that much.
Yeah. I was thinking, like, if you took all of the players for both teams that did not play in that game and started a team with them and then just filled it with like XFL guys, like,
Yeah.
I think it might have been able to beat the 49ers in that game. And I think it might actually beat, like, as you got Brock Purdy, right? You got Jair Alexander, Edgerrin Cooper, Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Travarius Ward. You got even their punter, Mitch Wishnowsky, going like, if you like, you could build like a really amazing core of a team and then like just fill it with like randos. And I think you could actually be better than some teams in the league.
Jordan Morgan. Yeah. Everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone. Yeah. No, that'd be, honestly, that's better than a expansion draft. So.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah. It's unfortunate that it came down that way. I mean, Green Bay will take the victory. No worries about that. That's nice. And they certainly have plenty of tough games upcoming. In fact, I think a few weeks ago, like this game against Miami didn't look as tough. I think it looks a whole heck of a lot tougher now. The game against the Saints pre-Rizzy looked much easier than it does now. Like they're certainly rejuvenated under him. It still should be a win for Green Bay, but they look like a much different team. The Bears just almost beat Green Bay a week ago. And despite them still being kind of bad and finding ways to lose, like they're better than they were in that 3 games or whatever, 2-3 game stretch where they like lost to the Patriots by 20. So that game kind of looks harder. So a lot of those games. And then of course, Detroit, Minnesota, Seattle just kind of basically shut out Arizona. So like, I think the rest of the schedule kind of looks harder than you expected it, at least a few weeks ago. So getting I guess a cakewalk win against the 49ers, I don't necessarily mind it.
Yeah. And honestly, the playoff stuff helps a lot, right? Where you didn't knock San Francisco out of the playoffs, but you knocked them out of the wild card. And that's important enough. You look at, I know you've been using like the New York Times simulator, right?
Yep.
And I looked at that. I think I did the math on it, and it was like 91% chance the Packers make it into the wild card.
Yes.
And, really, I mean, you're just trying not to get that last wild card spot with the way things are looking right now, right? Where you're like, I'd rather play whoever wins the West or whoever wins the South instead of the Eagles in Philadelphia in the first round, right?
True.
So yeah, I mean, just keep stacking wins. It's going to be kind of boring down the stretch. It seems outside of the West and South, and maybe that last seed in the NFC wild card, things are kind of decided. Like maybe there's a little jostling from, the Vikings to the Lions, but outside of that, there's not many other threats.
Did you look at the 49ers odds of making the playoffs as of today?
It wasn't good. I know it was below 5% for the wild card.
It is right now. I'm looking at it. When I first started, it was like at 5%. Right now, it's at 7% total, and 5% for the wild, or sorry, 2% for the wild card, 5% for hosting the wild card, 93% out, less than 1% chance of getting obviously a bye week. There's no chance of finishing first overall.
No.
They have a tough schedule too. Like it's not like completely brutal, but there's enough like really tough games on there: at Bills, at Dolphins, Lions at home, at Cardinals, and then Rams and Bears at home. And just the way that they look right now, I don't know. I mean, again, they'll get some of these guys back and it'll definitely help, but it just did not seem like a very good football team at the moment.
No, and certain things about the team too, like I think the Packers pass rush did decent. Like on a relative scale, that was one of their better performances this year, I think.
Agreed.
And I'm like, for your offensive line. like, oh, I'm worried about the Niners offensive line. Like,
yep.
I don't know. That whole game was just, it felt weird. It felt like a waste of time. Why are you not using Christian McCaffrey more than like 3 times in the first half? I understand you're down, but like what you thought throwing with Brandon Allen the entire game was going to bring you a win here, there was no chance in hell that was what your game plan was. You just tossed it to the side immediately. And, second half, they started running the ball more. They started running play action. It got closer, at least.
Yeah. I was surprised, like, because this was a 10-point game, even going into like the first few possessions of the second half. Like it wasn't completely out of reach for San Francisco, yet it totally felt the entire time completely out of reach. It didn't feel like there was ever really any threat. I was talking to Nagler about this for his show on She Said TV, Let's Talk Football, and we were talking about kind of like that end of the play or end of the first half, shot play to Watson, and then they really kind of took 2 more shot plays kind of after that. It felt to us like they were going for the kill shot right then and there of just like, let's just end this right now. The sooner we can get this to garbage time and get some of these guys in, we've got a game on Thursday coming up. Like if we could find a way to really get this to garbage time early, that would be amazing. It felt like right then and there, they were going for the jugular and being like, we don't want this to have any sort of like little, like they're hanging around. And unfortunately they dropped the deep shot. They can't connect on the other 2. It takes them a little bit till they get some of those turnovers in the second half to really put it out of reach. And then finally towards the end, they can kind of get into that garbage time and get some of their subs in. But if they just connect on that play to Watson and Watson hangs on to that one, I think that one ends up probably a lot uglier, a lot sooner. And I think we might see some of those subs come in even maybe beginning of fourth quarter right thereafter.
Yeah, I do think that the subs and the whole rotation thing, I do wonder how much of that played a factor in this game. I know LaFleur, after the game, they were asking him about Josh Jacobs and, do you have it in your mind to, start rotating guys and stuff like that in game, knowing that, you have a Thursday coming up. And he was like, no, you can't think about that. But then you look at like the defense specifically. One, Stokes did not need to be in that game. So I don't know if that's a coaching staff thing. Like,
they can't quit him. They can't quit him.
Stokes back? Stokes wasn't back last week, right?
No, but they just can't quit him.
So he's rotating there. The defensive line, if you go look at the snap counts, you can find those at APC, by the way. Just nuts. Like everyone played like 20 snaps, and that was it. Like everyone got a chance at this game. And I know there was garbage time at the end, but that was like 7 snaps for the defensive side. Tyron Hopper gets in for his first action. We get a Zane Anderson appearance, the blessed Zane Anderson appearance. But yeah, I do wonder if, like, at least on the defensive side, they were like, if we don't have to go, let's not expend our energy. You know what it kind of felt like, man? It felt like that terrible Mike Tyson, Jake Paul fight.
It was awful. It was absolutely
like neither are really trying that hard. They're just trying to like cash this check.
It very much felt that way. Like they were just. I'm talking more the fight in this case, that it felt like they were trying to cash the check, and that there was bizarro stipulations, or I don't know. It was just a weird fight. I don't get it. I don't get boxing, but like every single time, and this is like, not that we need to get on a tangent here, but every single time you have something like this that takes place that everyone gets an appetite for, they're like, this could be really cool. Like, let's actually see it happen. every single time one of two things happens. Either it's this, where like there's like 5 punches landed the entire time and it's just like a complete snore fest, or like someone clearly went, like the fight right before where somebody clearly wins the fight and it gets handed to the other person by decision. And it's like everyone, the announcers, like everyone in the stands, everyone watching at home, everyone's like, yes, very clearly this other person won this fight and it's not even close, but your reigning, defending, undisputed champion is the other person who got beat up the entire match. One of two things happens in big fights every single time. And it's like, how do you get into a sport like that?
Yeah, it is tough. I don't know, grow up Mexican, and you'll see boxing all the time. That's one way
I
to
guess
do
I
it.
don't know, but I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. We can put in a good word for you.
All right, deal. I'm
the
in. Like,
reincarnation flip.
if you get a good fight, like there's nothing quite like a good fight. But all right, enough about fighting, enough about boxing. Let's go back to that. Like I just want to go back to Eric Stokes for a second. I don't understand that for a minute of like why they are at this point. I'm more convinced they're going to sign him to like a 7-year extension more than like just bench him permanently. Like it just doesn't seem like they can ever quite give him up. He played, I think, 4 or 5 snaps the week before. And then this one, he was basically right there 50-50 with Carrington Valentine, splitting snaps the entire time. It just is the weirdest thing ever. It's very Packers of them.
Yeah, and I went back and I ended up watching their targets, actually, because I wanted to check those out. Because I know Carrington had they credited him, at least on like NFL Pro, with like 60 yards that he allowed. But like one of them is a screen where he's setting the edge. That's
right.
not his problem. Another one was there's early on.
Kittle one that's legit. The Kittle one that's legit.
The Kittle one's legit. He's in his back pocket. Kittle makes a play. I don't like. He's in good position. You live with those ones. Another one was throw into the flat when he was the corner in cover 3, and it was just Eric Wilson not being able to fly outside. I guess he ended up getting counted as like near quote unquote nearest defender, right?
Weird. Yeah.
And then there was another one that was like not a big deal. I can't remember what it was. So I was like, okay, so he allowed like the Kittle one. Not the worst thing.
Did you see PFF's grade on him?
Give it to me. Let's see.
I think he was the lowest graded player on the team on defense. He was the lowest graded. They gave him a 29.5, lowest graded player on defense.
Whoa.
I went through and graded everything for obviously every player. I got through defense already. I'm not through the offense. I'm only, I don't know, not enough plays in an offense. I'm only 10 plays in an offense, but I finished defense. And I had a slight negative on Carrington, like a very slight negative grade on him. PFF had him as a 29 something and clearly the lowest graded player. And I'm like, usually PFF, it's not like we're always completely in lockstep by any means, but like usually there's like a small degree of difference. If anything, there's not anything like majorly drastic, and they just nuked him in this game. And I, for the life of me, can't really figure out why. Because I didn't, again, it wasn't like he blew the roof off the place or was just dominant the entire game. Gave him a couple completions here or there, but like, I didn't think it was anything that bad at all. Let's see what they had him as. They credit him with 3 catches on 4 targets, 68 yards is what they credit him for in this game.
3 on 4. So yeah, that should be similar. But again, like 2 of those are plays that are like not even really. He's not really supposed to impact those plays, or he did his job. Like the screen that he allowed. He's setting the edge, which is what you want to do. You don't want to let a screen guy get to the sideline. So, yeah, I thought the Stokes thing, there's that one where, Brandon Allen missed the throw, right? Correct. And the guy kind of slipped. But yeah, there was that dig over the middle of the field where Stokes is supposed to be right there, then you get into a change of direction situation, and it's just like, whoop, 5 yards of separation. It's like
easy.
That is the problem. And that was not a star. That was not George Kittle, by the way, making a back shoulder catch or whatever the hell it was. So
no.
Yeah. I'm so done with Stokes. We were talking about it in the APC Slack, and we're like, I don't know. Would you rather see Corey Ballantyne out there or Stokes? I'm like, but yeah, like Robert Rochelle, but if you cut Stokes, you don't lose anything. Is kind of the point, right? It's just like
he doesn't. Does he play teams at all? Does he play any teams? I don't think he plays any teams. Does he? Maybe a little bit.
I think so.
Yeah,
I don't think so. But yeah, no good. I'm done with Stokes. I'm done.
What did you think of Quay in this one? I liked overall his game in this one. I have another question to follow up on this Quay thing, but what did you think of Quay?
He was solid in this game. I still don't trust him. Shout out to PFF for giving him like a 92 grade or whatever the hell it was in this game. The ball hit both of his hands and his face mask. I wonder how big of a grade he gets for that one.
Here, that was my follow up to this. So, for the record, he was also my highest graded defender in this game. However, I did have a negative grade on the drop, and some people were very upset with me for having a negative grade on the drop interception.
Pass the ball.
To me, so here's how I defend that. Here's how I look at it. And you can tell me if I'm an idiot if you'd like. Do you remember the play in week 1 where Xavier McKinney picks off the pass against Philadelphia and he kind of ranges over from like an entirely different area of the field and picks off the ball? Like, if Xavier McKinney makes this unbelievable play on that one and ranges over and reads it perfectly and gets to it like a zone he's not even supposed to be in and makes this unbelievable play and it ends up bouncing off of his hands, like, all right, like I'm more of like he just was awesome in getting there in the first place. Or if Quay was in man-to-man coverage in this play and he was sticking with the wide receiver, the tight end perfectly, and, got up in his face and again, either made like a diving attempt at a pick or some sort of contested pick situation, but covered him perfectly up until that point. Again, a little bit more of like, all right, he didn't catch the pass, but like he was awesome in coverage and did everything. Like, he literally drops into the most basic zone possible, ranges a little bit to his left, and it clanks right off. It's like the easiest like interception you're ever going to get in your life. I don't know how you like look at anything on that play and be like, yep, this is a positive. And like the only thing that his only job on that play was to catch the ball that gets thrown right to him. And he didn't do that. To me, that's like almost like a turnover worthy play. So I didn't like crucify the dude for it. It didn't like give him like this major, like, you nuked the game. What are you doing, you idiot? But like, to me, that's definitely a negative graded play.
I'm telling you, if you're Quay, all you're doing is hearing about it from the Packers and their players today. You're
Oh
getting
yeah.
clowned. You're getting clowned because that thing jumped up right on top of you. I dropped a pick one time in I was at the end and like the ball came out a little low, I guess, and it just like snuck up on me. And I think about it every day because I'm like, I could have gone, dude. I could have gone the whole way. It would have happened.
Do you know how I know it's a negative play? Because 3 of his teammates for about 8-9 seconds after the play are standing by him still like this with their hands on his head, like just staring at him like, how did this possibly happen? That's how I know it's a negative play, when three of his teammates are so dumbfounded of how it could possibly not have been an interception in that scenario. That's your tell. That's your tell right there.
Every DB was like, ah.
I know. And I'm sure they've all been there at some point. It's all clanked off their hands. And again, like the sucky thing is, like, I thought this again was one of the better games that he's played overall. I loved how he played downhill. And to me, the conversation should much more be about that and just him again playing a more solid game in this one. But yeah, that one to me, that would have been like obviously putting it over the top. And it clearly would have been, in my opinion, his best game as a Packer if he picks that one off. But alas, I still thought this was a positive step. But to your point, I'm not, getting my expectations high that this is going to be a weekly thing from Quay.
Yeah, we have such a big record, right? That I'm just not going to believe that on some random week, it's not coming out of a bye. There wasn't like a schematic change or anything like
Right.
that he just pieced it together. I mean, if nothing against him, I mean, I wish the best for him.
Yep.
I hope he has a Hall of Fame career for the Packers. I'm just going to need to see a little bit more of that before I start buying into any sort of level of consistency.
Totally agreed. I see some people upset with, or maybe not upset, maybe that's a little bit strong, but still not a believer in Jordan Love's play after this game. Thoughts on Jordan's overall play?
Man, that drop pass that Bo Melton had, not even the Christian Watson one, the Bo Melton one. That's one of the.
Are you talking about the Dobbs one behind him? What Bo
No,
Melton?
the one up the right sideline.
Oh, the Melton one. Got it.
Yeah. Like one of the best throws I've seen. Like, guys, come on. I understand, like, he's not the most consistent player. I think the worst throw, honestly, was or I guess the worst rep was that blitz that they sent the Niners, and there was just a guy free. Dude, Kraft is wide open. Kraft is so unbelievably open. Love pre-snap switches the protection. He wanted to get some stuff, just getting a hat on a hat a little bit. I think he wanted to throw the dig to the right, and unfortunately, bit off a little bit more than he could chew, and then by the time
Yeah.
he'd get to Kraft, it was just too late. The pressure had impacted the throw. That would have been a really nice one to have. But like, what more do you want from like Watson had the drop? There was the Melton thing.
Dobbs had a drop that almost ended in an interception.
Yeah.
Um, I thought the very first throw of the game, it's really hard to tell on the tape. I think it's outside where it's not totally a drop by Dobbs. Um, I kind of put that a little bit on Jordan in that one, but it's really tough to tell if Dobbs actually got his hands on it or not. But that's, potentially one that could have been completed. And then there's the little play along the sidelines to Jacobs where
Mhm.
Jordan expects him to continue up the sideline so he can lead him. And Jacobs just kind of sat down, expecting him to kind of sit in that
Yeah.
area. So it's just more of a miscommunication than anything. But they're this close to
Also,
completing that.
you gotta know running backs aren't laying out for that either. You got to put that thing on them
That's
because
true. That's
they're
fair.
hearing footsteps immediately. All those boys see is contact, contact, contact inside the tackles. So when you get them outside, they're like, where is he? Where is he? He's coming for my head."
Yeah, that's very true. I did think the 2 sacks that he took too, he probably could have either stayed in the pocket or maybe done something a little bit different. I thought he maybe kind of ran himself into those, at least the first one for sure. But again, overall, I thought he made a couple really great throws over the middle. That absolute dime to Watson, a nice throw again, like you, a perfect throw to Melton as well. That just either again dropped or broken up or whatever it might be. Like there's plenty of really good stuff on tape once again from Jordan, and I don't know. I don't have any real bones to pick other than the one throw that he didn't see the defender. He talked about it in the post game when I asked about it, and could have been picked if Watson didn't maybe break it up a little bit. But man, that's one bad decision in 2 weeks for me. I can certainly live with that.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I talked to some people who do like national stuff, right? And they're like breaking down the Packers on a Monday, so they hit me up and they pick my brain and stuff like that. And one thing that keeps coming by me is people getting excited about Love, not just because of, he's starting to build up that consistency, but the fact that he can get hot, right? And they look at the Packers as this team that they haven't done it yet, right? From a consistency standpoint, like both sides of the ball. I think this game and like the Cardinals game, probably, but there's
Yeah.
been a whole lot of time in between. Have probably been when the Packers have looked the best. So it's not like they've put together a stretch where they've looked like, you know, they're a team that can is a real 50-50 shot against the Lions on the road and the Eagles on the road and all this stuff and whoever in the AFC, right?
Yep.
But because Love can make some of those crazy throws like the mountain stuff and things like that, they're like, that's a team that I don't want to bet against and that I don't feel safe against if my team is, playing them in the playoffs and stuff. So I don't know. If you got an issue with Love, like we're in a good spot at the quarterback position still.
Yep.
I understand it's not MVP numbers, but like I'm excited. Like you're going into any playoff game with a chance. Cool. There's so many teams that would die for
Yep.
that.
No, I'm
So
right there with you. And I'm there's actually a decent like piece of my being that is sort of excited that they haven't peaked and haven't put everything together yet. Now, we need to see a little bit more proof of concept. I don't know that I feel super comfortable that they can go. You mentioned those 50-50 games. Can they go Seattle on the road, Detroit on the road, Philly on the road, and then a neutral game against KC or Buffalo or whoever it might be, and go back to back to back to back wins against 4 teams the caliber of that? I don't think I've seen anything quite yet that would lend me to believe that they've played that brand of football yet. But I think they're capable of it if they get hot at the right time and if they start
mhm.
playing a little bit better football, kind of in a similar vein to what we saw at the end of last year. And to me, like the fact that you've seen pieces of it, right? We've seen games where the explosive offense is there, like they're hitting big play after big play. We've seen games where inside the 20s, the efficiency, they can run past, like find anything that they want. And then we saw in this game a 5-for-5 game in the red zone where in between the 20s, it wasn't always the prettiest picture that they painted, but overall, like they go 5-for-5 in the red zone. If all of a sudden you just put those together, and I think I saw somebody post today, they're still third in offensive DVOA, despite playing 2.5 games of the backup quarterback, another like 2.5 with Jordan Love being like a shell of himself, and 1 game on an entirely slippery field, and just not still putting any of that together, and they're still up there that high. Like that is unbelievable. And I still have a lot of faith in the weapons, the play caller, the quarterback, the running back, the offensive line, like if they get it all together, I still think it's look the hell out for the rest of the league.
Yeah. And speaking of a guy that somehow we haven't really brought up, I mean, I guess we talked about him with the pass catcher stuff, but Josh Jacobs. Oh boy.
That was some 2022 Josh Jacobs justice.
Yeah. And he was good last week too, man.
Yeah. He's been
Remember? I
since
mean,
really like Jacksonville game. Like it's been
yeah.
a handful of weeks now. Even Detroit, he started off awesome until they got away from running the football because they were down and tried to get back in that game.
Yeah. No, man, that's a really impressive back. That's a tough guy to break down.
Yeah.
I saw the stat. It was like, he's leading the league in missed tackles and stuff, which doesn't surprise me. It's not that like he's never going to be the guy who breaks off the like 80-yard run in the same way that like Saquon Barkley does, right?
Right.
But just in terms of just like consistently pushing the pile forward, you're getting positive momentum. You're just a tough dude to bring down. Like, hats off to the staff.
There were some of the best like 0 to 1 yard runs that you've seen in this game, like just like making people miss matrix style and still finding a way to get positive yards when he had no human right getting positive yards on some of those plays. And did you see how many missed tackles he forced this week per next gen stats? You have a guess?
Like 12?
15, which he is the most anyone's made miss this entire season so far.
Yeah, crazy. I mean, he's great, man. He's great, and they're getting pretty confident in those running backs with the pony package.
Yes.
I think the Chris Brooks stuff is really interesting because he's out snapping Emmanuel Wilson, but Wilson is getting more carries.
Yep.
Because Brooks is coming into the game and he's being the second guy in the two back looks, and he's kind of either being the extra blocker or the decoy or whatever for Josh Jacobs a little bit. And I think that's interesting. The Packers now, scheme Twitter is getting into the spinner stuff that we've been talking about all year, where they're like, yo, do you guys know the Packers have like basically like a youth football system offense that they sprinkle in every once in a while? People getting excited about that. It's a fun team. It's interesting to see how they get everything figured out in the run game, where they had a man in motion be the ball carrier on counter. That's not normal.
No.
Like, you don't see these things usually, especially at the NFL level. So
I just want to go back to something really quick because I don't know how important this is, and maybe this is absolutely nothing, but so my youngest son was on a flag football team, and one of the other kids on the team, his father is in the Packers organization. I'll just kind of leave it at that. And I forget who he said. He told me, I don't know if it was LaFleur or one of the other like offensive coaches put together like a youth football playbook of like different packages and different things to use. And like, it wouldn't even like shock me at all of what you're saying. If they're like, they took things from that, like, oh yeah, like that actually could work in like some of the stuff that we're doing, like to some extent of like, cause you said like some of the stuff that they're doing there is almost like a youth football package. And like, they literally somebody in the organization, I forget who it was, somebody in the offensive staff put together a youth football, flag football package. So it exists there somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, again, the only time I've seen it has been at the youth level, and a lot of people like it. But yeah, I mean, it's all the spinner stuff, right? It's when Jordan Love does the full 360, and you're like, who has the ball, right?
Yep.
It's that whole thing. So it's a pretty well documented offense. I mean, there's not that many things that you can do at the youth level. You're not throwing the ball. I hate to spoil it to you, any 6-year-old quarterbacks who are watching this. You're not throwing the football at the youth level.
My son is 6 years old. I've seen them try. It's not pretty.
It doesn't work.
Nope.
They can't hit the dig. They certainly can't hit the dig. But yeah, no, it's weird. It's basically like the way I kind of think about it is like play action for the running game.
Yeah.
And we don't really have that outside of like draws, right? Because it's the same thing with like the starburst kick return, if you've ever seen that, where they return it and then everyone turns their back. Yeah, everyone turns their back and then they spread out, and you're like, I have no idea which one of these 5 guys has the ball. It's kind of like that, and I think the Packers are seeing the benefits of early adopter.
Can we see a starburst kick return? Is that next?
I mean, they only have 2 returners, right? You're only allowed 2 guys back there, but sure, why not, man? Let's do it.
That's going to be the next thing. Or maybe you just have 5 guys in the backfield and do the same thing in the backfield. They're going to come up with something next. But no, I love the creativity, and I just like that they're using it. And I'll be interested to see how much longer they can run it before maybe teams catch on a little bit more. But right now, it's working great. It also feels like,
well, the good thing about it is they're running it out of the pony stuff where they had staples over the
yep,
years, right? How many times have we seen the 2-back stuff and we're like, okay, it's going to be inside
one of
zone,
two
and then
things.
the other guy's going to bubble out of the backfield, and it's just going to be an RPO. Well, now they're using this as like a constraint, right? They're using it as like a tendency breaker because they're still throwing those bubbles and stuff like that. It's just not as obvious. And I'm like, thank you. This is exactly what I asked for.
And I love the Brooks and Jaden Reed backfield where then Brooks motions in and they fake it to him, and then Reed gets up the sideline and the little wheel, like just chef kiss stuff. Like that is gorgeous. Obviously, we saw that wrinkle in the offense. They did go 5 for 5 in the red zone. Anything that you noticed of that they did? I mean, obviously they run block better because they were able to get Jacobs the three touchdowns. But anything else that you saw that was like, all right, that seems to be smarter or better, or did they just execute better?
I think they just executed better. They got better matchups, right? The Bears were just really good, in that
Yeah, but the
area of the
49ers
field.
have Devondre Campbell.
Come on now. Come on now. You know. You know.
I had to. I'm sorry, I had to. They're utilizing him correctly though.
Sure, as a 4-3 Sam. That
I
the
don't know.
same position that he played with the Falcons that he was like, yeah, I don't like this. This doesn't fit me.
Yeah. What an interesting scenario that was. Like complains about the team where he won a first team all pro, utilizing him incorrectly.
Yeah.
Oy vey. Fun times. We talked about the defensive line rotation. Did you see Tyron Hopper got a snap before even garbage time?
Before garbage time, no, I did not see
Yeah.
that.
It was base defense early in the third quarter. He was in as a base defender. He got one snap, and he actually was involved in making the tackle on the play. So just one play. I don't know what led to it. I don't know if a linebacker, had a equipment malfunction or if they actually wanted to get him in the game on purpose, but he did have one snap. I posted it on Twitter if anyone wants to view it, but he got one snap. It was early third quarter in a 4-3 defense look. So one snap, we're in.
We did it. Yeah, good for him. I saw, in the garbage time stuff, he was kind of involved in like one of those TFLs.
Yep.
So
Well, he kind of missed the tackle, but was
yeah,
responsible for
involved.
yes, involved. But he got there, made a great read, immediately shot into the backfield, and then kind of did the thing where he kind of swings him around, but he swings him back into the backfield. I think that's a play where it's really difficult to see who forces the fumble on it was the final play. I think it's Brenton Cox who actually rips it out. But yeah, that was overall. I thought in the few plays that he was in, he looked the part, which is promising, I guess.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, that's the same guy I saw in college. Which
Yeah,
skinny little
fair.
dude who can run around. Yeah, the defense was interesting. I wonder how much of it changes up, especially against Miami. They have just such a defined structure. You're not going to have a lack of weapons in the same way that the Niners have in that
No,
game, or a lack of a trigger man either, right? So it's just so different that I don't know how much we could take out of it. I think getting guys rest and heavily rotating the team was probably the right way to go.
All right, before we get to Packers Dolphins, the one other nerdy thing that was kind of interesting to me was Jacob Monk being inactive for that game and Travis Glover getting activated. You want to know my guess on this?
Go for it.
I think because we've seen Dillard being active, we've seen who's the other tackle? Travis Glover, of course, but then we've seen Telfort being active. I think one of the first few games he was inactive. Now we've seen Monk be inactive. I actually wonder if this is a thing of the 3 best players in practice every week are going to be the next guys up and we don't care who it is. And whoever they've got some sort of competition going on, and whoever those 3 players are that practice best throughout the week are going to get the activation on game day, and the 4th one's not going to get activated. That's just my random guess.
Maybe I was, worried a little bit what the heck the interior offensive line was going to look like without Monk, especially with, Jordan out. Monk was kind of like 6-man on that offensive line. You would have
You would
thought.
have thought. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's inactive. They brought up 3 tackles. I didn't watch the garbage time for the offense, so I don't know how who moved in the guard. I know Walker stayed out there. I know Sean Ryan stayed out there. So I'm going to assume Walker was left tackle. Sean Ryan played center, and then 2 of those 3 tackles ended up playing guard. But those are all 3 like true tackles. Like you don't want those guys on the inside. I think if there was actually an injury during the game, we probably see like Elton Jenkins move to center, Tom move to guard, and then them bring a tackle off of the bench.
Do you want to know what the 5 lineup was? I'm just looking at it
Go
now. I
for it.
think
Go for it.
it is Rashid at left tackle.
Yep.
It is Telford at left guard, Sean Ryan at center,
Yep.
Travis Glover at right guard, and Andre Dillard at right tackle.
Dillard is supposed to be the left tackle.
Which you would think, yes. So that's weird. But they didn't want to I'm sure they didn't want to switch Walker. So they just kept him out there. You didn't want to keep Tom in the game. You don't want to keep Elton in the game. They probably could have kept Myers in the game, but he's beat up. So you probably don't want to keep him in the game.
I mean, Telfort and Travis at guard, that might be the largest guard combo in NFL history. Just like
Telford
That's crazy.
Did do a bunch of guard stuff in mini camp where he was out there quite a bit there. They did like actually do some cross training of him there. I don't ever recall Travis Glover being inside a single time. I could just be misremembering. Not like I was really tracking Travis Glover's guard play all that much, but I don't ever remember it. And it probably was like, we literally don't care at this point. Like we're just going to put 5 guys out there. We're just going to run the ball 4 times anyway. It really doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, that was interesting.
I will say those backs running hard the entire game. Because I think, dude, that's Sharks taste of blood where they're like, I feel quit in this defense. I'm about to put film up so that if anything happens to me in Green Bay, at least someone's going to be able to look outside of the organization and say like, whoa, that guy could do that. And Brooks and Wilson were both just running their asses off.
Yes, they were. And if you're Jacob Monk, you got to be like, this is the game. Of course, we get to garbage time and everyone gets in the game. And this is the one I'm inactive for. Thanks a lot, guys. All right, let's talk Packers Dolphins. You kind of talked about, first of all the weapons that Miami has. Tua is doing an unbelievable job playing within the system, accurate, on time, within rhythm. It looks really, really good for them right now. If you're Jeff Hafley, first of all, how are you game planning this one? Because these guys can obviously beat you at all layers of the field.
You just got to cloud everything. Cloud absolutely everything. No free releases. Make them earn it. Make Tua complete a deep ball that doesn't have a crazy arc on it, right? That you can't make up with your foot speed. Hope the pass rush gets there. I mean, that's the only way to do it. I know you don't want to get in people's faces when you're playing really good skill talent, but the way they just like check everything down and there's so much pre-snap motion and all that stuff that you got to get in front of them and you just got to make a couple things tough for them and you got to make them execute. And that's really it. I mean, the Dolphins, I've seen like their passing game DVOA and stuff like that, where, the first half, I guess I should say first quarter of the season, right? It's no good. And then the second quarter, they've been like top 10, right? So they're kind of clicking right now. Let's find out. They're feeling themselves a little bit too much. He's a shit talker, and I always forget that he is. Because I'm like, a quarterback who plays like that wouldn't be super confident. No, just confidence through the roof. He was like, we're going to dispel the myth of Lambeau Field. I'm like, okay, all right, let's see it.
I think too, they're wanting to dispel the myth of that they can't play in cold conditions. It sounds like too, because it sounds like it has not gone well when they've played in any cold conditions whatsoever. So, they want to change some narratives apparently, and we'll see if they can do it or not. Up to Green Bay to stop them.
Just hope these wide receivers are wearing molded cleats. Molded cleats, no studs. Let's wait to get the studs on until the second half.
Like they figure out, like, oh, the field's kind of slippery if we don't have the right cleats on. Weird.
Oh,
it's funny. Weird. Nobody's ever had that happen before. How about offensively for Green Bay? How do you kind of go about attacking this Dolphins defense? Just run your stuff?
Honestly, just run your stuff. I feel like this Packers team could do a little bit of everything at this point, right? We're seeing the success of at least the explosives in every facet of the game. So do your stuff. Don't get penalties. Don't crap out in the red zone. That is all of my suggestions.
Going back to that, not to completely get off topic here, but now I'm like intrigued. Like going back to that 2020 NFL draft at quarterback,
Okay.
2020, right?
Yeah. That's Love and Tua.
Yes. Yeah. How are we ranking these quarterbacks today? Because you got what? You got Burrow going number 1. You've got Tua at 5. You've got Herbert at 6. You've got Jordan at 26. And then, of course, you've got Jalen Hurts later in the draft.
Herbert 1.
Would that be the same if Burrow wasn't hurt? If like Burrow's
Yeah.
wrist bizarro stuff never happened?
Yeah.
Okay. No, you're just an Oregon stan.
That man is going to be Dan Marino. So I'm excited for it.
I'm a huge Justin Herbert guy. I have no problem with that whatsoever.
I guess Burrow is 2, but it is much closer with Jordan. And then, man, I might take 2 over Hurts. I
Hurts
think
is
I'll
an
go
interesting
2 over Hurts. But they're definitely, it's like Herbert, tier 2 guys, tier 2 guys, to me, at least.
Yeah.
I really
think
don't like Hurts, man. And I don't like Tua, but I think I like Hurts less than Tua.
they're both intriguing. You both have to have the right systems for both of them. Like I don't think you can't just transport Tua or Hurts into any offense and be like, we're going to be fine or whatever. You have to have a specific plan for both of those guys. Burrow, Love, and Herbert, I feel like can pretty much survive in pretty much any offense in any conditions and be totally fine.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Burrow. This is the thing I've always said about Burrow is that I'm like, he's like Dak. He's like exactly like Dak. You want him to be this spread guy who's running empty and all this stuff. So I do think it's kind of interesting that like the Bengals offense is always disjointed between what they do under center and what they do in the shotgun. Like they really do get under center to run the ball. They go in the shotgun to throw the ball. And that works, but then like, your play actions and all of this stuff that we were just talking about, the auxiliaries, right? Aren't tied up together. So that was kind of one reason why I was like, I don't know, do I want Jordan? I might want Jordan. Like, ask me at the end of December, I might want Jordan more than Burrow. So that's how close it is to me.
All right, this is totally off topic, but I had a friend asking me these two questions tonight. All right, you have to start a franchise right now with either Jordan Love or CJ Stroud. Who are you taking?
I'm taking Jordan.
All right, Jordan Love or Jaden Daniels?
Jordan.
Yeah.
I'm not a Jane Daniels guy.
I'm intrigued by Daniels. I would
he's
say
gonna break.
I said
He's
Jordan
gonna
over
break.
Daniels without hesitating. I didn't hesitate Jordan over Daniels.
Yeah.
But I hesitate a little bit more on Stroud and earlier in the year I said Stroud and I didn't really hesitate, but Stroud is definitely having a different year 2 season than we saw in year 1.
Yeah, for sure. I'm in the same boat with you. I probably would have said Stroud to start the year and not so much now. Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there's that many. Someone asked like who my top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL were, right? And I think I know the 4 were the order doesn't matter. It's Josh, Mahomes, Lamar, and Herbert. I think it's those guys. And then I think the 5th guy that I picked was Stafford.
It's fair.
And that's kind of what you want Love to be. But like once you get past those top 4, I feel like the player pool for, the Burrow, the Love, the Stafford, all those guys is pretty big. So,
I would agree. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else that is even in that conversation. You don't have Aaron Rodgers up there? I say very much in jest. Yeah, to me, Lamar, Justin, Patrick, Josh Allen are the 4. And then I agree with you. I think number 5 is a lot more up for grabs / questionable. Yeah, I'm just kind of going through it. I don't know who I would say in that situation.
I think I put a lot of thought into it, and I was like Stafford. But I know people are like all the film nerds like Stafford. So like, all right,
He's an
well, he's
unbelievable
good.
quarterback. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
very, very good.
he could deliver the ball, and he's very consistent. He has a big arm. What I don't know what else you want from me.
I might go if he was healthy. I think I would say Burrow. No, quite. I think he would be my number 5. I do like Burrow, or I loved Burrow quite a bit. I don't know exactly what's going on with the wrist injury and how much it's affecting him or not. I do wonder, like the offensive line situation in Cincinnati through his tenure has not been great overall. And the Cincinnati Bengals are such a weird ass franchise just in general. So I think if you got Burrow, and I'm not saying he needs like perfect conditions or whatever, but I think if you actually built him a good line and gave him, he has good weapons clearly, but like if Higgins could actually be out there every single week and stuff like that in a normal franchise, I do wonder if like he would just look like that much more unbelievable. And if he were healthy, there's a lot of ifs.
I have one question for you because I've been sitting on this hypothetical for a couple of days, and I
Oh, I'm
think you
so
might like
excited
it.
for this.
All right. Your son is a top quarterback in this upcoming draft.
Okay.
If he gets drafted by the Saints, do you sit out a year? The Saints are in such a bad
Bad
position.
nightmare position from a salary cap standpoint. Like it's going to get
Yeah.
awful. It's going to get absolutely awful.
Because I've seen these mock drafts now where they're having first round pick quarterback. And I'm like, dude, I think it's legitimately better for your career if you just sit out a year and just re-enter the draft. Like you cannot do that.
Yeah.
Because this isn't even the worst part. Like you're staring down
4 or 5 years.
3 years
Yeah,
of hell before
big
the
time.
rebuild even really
And
starts.
here's the other thing too. If to some extent I had a feeling that the Saints were going to take their medicine over the next 3 years and say like we're just going to eat this like for 2 or 3 years, like we're just going to completely like nuke it down to the ground of where we need to get actually financially like responsible, and like by year 3 or 4 we're actually going to have a normal salary cap situation. I think maybe I could live with it a little bit more and be like, all right, we're cool with that. But you have to really dedicate yourself to this because otherwise it's going to be an absolute nightmare. But even then, you're missing out on the young years of like the super cheap contract for that quarterback, in this case,
Yeah.
my son in the hypothetical. And then you've got to pay him. And now it's a totally different situation. So yeah, I'll say this from a different lens. There is no team, I don't think, in the NFL that I would less rather be a fan of over the next half decade than the New Orleans Saints with the situation that they're in right now.
Yeah, for sure. I was just thinking about it because, people brought up like the Eli Manning stuff, and, people were talking about Arch Manning because he's going to be in the draft next year, Shedeur Sanders. And I was like, it's pretty lame that they kind of call their shots, right? Like everyone's kind of happy with the draft system and, you're getting paid your money and all that. But then I was like, man, if I got drafted by the Saints, I think I would really have to think about it where I'm like, I kind of would take a year off and re-roll the dice. Like
There's
that
no
might
world in
actually
which anyone actually has to sit out a year, though, right? Like it ends up being a trade before that ever actually happens. But I think you have to threaten it, of course.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, the last guy to sit out was Bo Jackson, right? So that was a
That
while
could be.
ago.
That
Yeah.
could be.
You know the
Yeah.
Bo Jackson story, right? What happened?
Wait. First of all, I thought there's a quarterback too who had it happen. Was it Kosar? Bernie Kosar? Like he sat out and then went the supplemental draft, something like that. And somebody like the Browns
Okay.
traded up for like the supplemental draft. There's a Bernie Kosar story there too, somewhere of like how he sat out a draft and then some team traded for the first overall supplemental pick. And then he went supplemental and there's something like that with Bernie Kosar. But no, I don't know if I remember the Bo Jackson story.
So the Bo Jackson thing, he was still playing college baseball when he was at Auburn. And Tampa had convinced the Buccaneers had the first overall pick. Tampa had convinced him that they went through the NCAA and that he wouldn't have lost baseball eligibility to be able to talk to them about potentially signing as the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. He goes back to Auburn. They're like, "Yeah, we just got an NCAA suspension for you. Like you're done." And I guess it was part of a grand ploy of Tampa being like, "We're going to force you out of college athletics, so we can use this first overall pick." They take him. He's just like, "Screw you guys. I'm going to go play baseball." And I'm like, more power to you.
What would be a crazier like? Can you imagine a story today in which somebody like a Bo Jackson or a Deion Sanders actually go between Major League Baseball and the NFL? Like I can't even possibly like it would be the most like it still is one of the most insane things ever that both of those guys were able to pull that off at any level, period. Like that they were able to go and actually play Major League Baseball in the NFL. That is the most absurd thing ever.
Nuts. Absolutely nuts. Or even just how good of a basketball player Charlie Ward was, where he's like, yeah, I won a Heisman, but like I'm not gonna go play in the NFL. Like,
Yeah, and he was the best quarterback in New York for a while, and he played for the Knicks. Is
yeah.
here was the Kosar story. Kosar was a redshirt sophomore at the University of Miami when he announced he was entering the NFL draft in March 1985. At the time, only college seniors and graduates were eligible for the draft. The Minnesota Vikings traded up to the second overall pick in the 1985 NFL draft to draft Kosar, but he opted into the supplemental draft instead. The Browns traded with the Buffalo Bills for the first overall pick in the supplemental draft. The Bills had the first pick because they had the worst record in 1984, and Bernie Kosar and his family identified a loophole that allowed Kosar to enter the supplemental draft to basically avoid Minnesota and go to Cleveland instead. So, can you imagine the words now avoiding Minnesota to go to Cleveland? Like that
Yeah.
doesn't seem like a good career choice in most situations. Not like the Vikings have done anything that special ever, but yeah, the Browns not
Hey.
exactly it's a different franchise now, right? Like that Browns team is now the Ravens, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that makes more sense.
Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I know supplemental draft was all crazy because what they had the USFL guys and all that stuff too when they came in. I mean, Reggie
Is
White.
is Mike Wall still the last successful like supplemental draft pick? Like they haven't turned out very well.
For Green Bay, yeah, probably. I know that Jalen Thompson, I think, was the last guy taken, and he was pre-pandemic.
Okay.
And he's doing decent as like a nickel safety for Arizona right now. Every year I have to write about, hey, supplemental draft deadline passed. No one signed up.
Nobody. Yeah, it's basically gone entirely by the wayside. Is that an NIL thing where just it does like yeah?
Yeah, I think it's NIL, and then everyone got the extra fifth year and stuff like that. The NFL was super strict about who they were going to let in, especially around the pandemic. I think they're less strict now, but they're just not getting any applications because you actually have to file into the draft, right? You have to file to get drafted.
Makes sense. All right, this is probably one of our best nerdiest episodes I think we've ever done, which is absolutely perfect. So I appreciate that a ton. What do you got cooking at APC this week?
Man, I'm doing everything. We got snap counts, we got all the stuff. We got
Supplemental draft conversations. We've got
we got linebacker injuries. I didn't know that this was coming. They put out the estimated injury report.
yeah, we should talk about that really
This
quick. We should
Monday.
talk about that. Go for it.
Yeah, so Jair, Edgerrin Cooper, Romeo Dobbs were estimated. They didn't actually have a practice today. They're
Right.
estimated to be a non-participant if they did have a practice. It's very goofy the way that all
Right.
this stuff is written. None of those are surprises, right? None of them were able to end the game. John Fitzpatrick, who, by the way, had like career high in snaps this past week, the tight end, has a back injury, so he would have been estimated as a non-participant. And then Isaiah McDuffie. If Isaiah McDuffie is actually hurt, I'm pretty concerned for this game because they only have 3 healthy linebackers in this
It's
situation.
Jamin Davis time, baby.
People have been saying this for a couple weeks now. So I got to believe it, or I got to see it before I believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you would just expect it to be Quay Walker and Eric Wilson through almost the entirety of the game. And then a smattering of Tyron Hopper in base defense.
Yeah.
And probably
But
Jamin
if
Davis
one
called
guy
up.
goes down, things turn into a circus very quickly. Very quickly.
Yeah, that's probably true. Maybe we'll get some Catano Ladapo as a nickel linebacker or something.
Portland's
Never know.
own. Let's go.
Let's do it. Yeah. Do they have anyone else on the linebacker depth chart on the practice squad besides Jamin?
I think it's just Jamin because they got rid of the A&M kid.
It's just Jamin.
We knocked off the
We
A&M
knocked
kid.
him off when we talked about him. We probably should have said anything about Jamin, although I think he's safe right now given the injury situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say I thought there were some linebackers. I am interested to see because I think there were 2 tight ends cut today, if I remember correctly. Greg Dulcich of Denver and then Muse from Minnesota. Nick Muse. I was gonna say
on Muse's birthday, they pulled the Packers. They dropped a happy birthday tweet and offed them.
I was gonna say like we're gonna see how much they like Fitzpatrick, because obviously he's past the deadline now, that 3-week deadline where they had to keep him. Basically, they can cut him at any time. 2 tight ends just became available. Now, if Fitzpatrick's hurt, they'd have to waive him injured or put him on IR or something like that, and then figure out an injury settlement later. But if he can't play and they want to pick one of those guys up, they could. It would be a tough ask on a 2-day turnaround or whatever. But those could be potential interesting ones, or they could just do a Messiah Swinson off the practice squad for a week if they needed to. Because Andrew Beck's gone, right? So that's not an option anymore. And then, do they have anyone else? Tight end? Messiah Swinson.
They have a tight end. Yeah.
Just Messiah Swinson. That's it. He's the only. Yeah. So we could see a Messiah Swinson debut. We could see a Jamin Davis debut if those 2 injuries are legit, if they can't play this week.
Yep. And, the Dolphins are a little bit banged up too. They already said Anthony Walker Jr., who's the starting linebacker. He's going to be out with a hamstring, and corner Kendall Fuller, who has a concussion, is going to be out too. So, Dolphins are dealing with it themselves. So we're not the only one in this game.
So the Packers are going to win by 30, and everyone's going to have to apologize for it again. Well, they didn't have Kendall Fuller in this game, so it doesn't really count. But
I did like, who was it? Was it Keyshawn or was it X? Who was like, we won 3 games with the backup quarterback.
It was Keyshawn. I think it was Keyshawn. It was very Keyshawn.
Like, I'm not going to feel bad. Yeah.
People can feel how they want about Keyshawn on the field. Off the field, that dude is awesome. Like that, he's the ultimate. Like, I don't know if you heard him too. He's like, they asked him about the big forced fumble that he had, and he's like, dude, it's been like 10 weeks since I made a play. It's about damn time I made a play in the game. It was like, it's just awesome. Like, totally real about it. He's like, yeah, it's been about 10 weeks since I made a play. So I guess it was probably about time, or like just basically tearing himself apart for not making one sooner. But I love that guy in all of his interviews. It's amazing. So, all right, Justin. So, all right. You talked about things coming up at APC. You mentioned, some of that stuff, but what else you got cooking?
We're probably going to have to do some film breakdowns on the spinner stuff. I don't know if it's going to happen before Thanksgiving or after. Actually, I'm going to plan on doing it after.
Not just do it during while you're at Thanksgiving, just at the table.
Mid-turkey. All right. Absolutely. You get 3 things on your plate for Thanksgiving. What are you getting? Oh,
you don't know the history here.
I don't.
I'm anti-Thanksgiving food. I hate all Thanksgiving food for the most part. My usual is a Thanksgiving pizza is what's on my plate every year. So so here's the true story. If we could end up in 3 different scenarios for Thanksgiving, either we're at our house with just our family, we're at my in-laws, or we're at my family's house. If in one of 3 things will happen. If we go to my in-laws, they're amazing, and they will make me my Thanksgiving pizza every single year. And then, of course, what happens is you've got all this crappy Thanksgiving food out and this delicious pizza that's sitting out, and everyone looks at it and everyone wants the pizza. So now they have to make multiple Thanksgiving pizzas because everyone wants the pizza instead of the crappy Thanksgiving food. So that's option number 1 that happes. Option number 2 is we go to my family's house, and they don't give a rat's ass if I want pizza or not. So I am stuck with the crappy Thanksgiving food if we're going to my family's house. So although I do think they're doing steaks this year, which is much more tolerable, so that I'm excited about that if that ends up coming to fruition. And then if it's at my family's house, what we like to do is with the kids and everyone. Everyone in our family gets to pick their favorite food, and we make everyone's favorite food for the day. And everyone just likes, gets to kind of chow down on everyone else's favorite food for the day. So those are the 3 scenarios.
Not a turkey guy.
If I had to, though, if you're asking me the question, whatever dinner / bread roll is going to be at the table is my number 1 draft pick for sure. I will hope that there is apple pie and not pumpkin pie, because I can't stand pumpkin pie. So I'm going to hope that there's apple pie, and apple pie will be my number 2 draft pick. And then I really get stuck after that, but I'll probably just take I'll just probably take a leg off the turkey and just kind of, chew off of that.
Just carbs.
Yeah.
Andy, the carbs, man.
Carbs in a leg. That's all I'm getting. How about you?
Dark meat roll, mashed potatoes. I'm good. I'm happy.
There you go.
Make them into a sandwich, even better.
Yeah, like I could, that's usually what I do too. Is I'll take just 2 pieces of there's like bread or something. Like try to get like 2 pieces of like bread. Just get some. I'll do like breast of that, like some breast meat that's got the skin on it. Just douse it in gravy. Just go to town with that. Like that's workable. All right, Justice, you're the absolute best. Follow him on Twitter at JUMOSQ. You can find me at Andy Herman NFL. You follow the podcast at Pack a Day Podcast. And of course, make sure to check out Acme Packing Company every single day at acmepackingcompany.com. That's going to do it for us. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.